All right, so we're going to cover how to do estimated settlement statements. Okay, so we're going to have two mechanisms to do that. One is through the MLS. You're going to have a calculator. Where did it go? Daily functions. There it is. Okay, so under daily functions, there's a calculator, closing cost estimator. Select new. And so we're just going to name this the sample, right? So let's do the buyer side first. So you don't need to display the seller summary. You can remove that. So this is John and Jane Doe. Buyer. Seller is Tom and Sally. Good old Tom and Sally. So let's call this 1800 South Jesse Place because it's a new listing that we just took. Okay, we're on the market, I think, but 679. So let's just say the buyer wants to offer 650. Now, this is something that you're going to want to complete prior to the buyers making offers. So I'm going to show you this one, and then I'll also show you Fidelities. And Fidelities is much, much quicker, but you're going to select actually the contract date, whatever the date you go into contract. So let's just say that we're doing that on Friday. We're going to select closing date. Let's call it the end of July. Property taxes on that are somewhere around 1900 if memory serves me right. So let's assume that we've got an FHA buyer. FHA is going to require at least 3.5% down. Find out if there's any upfront MIP from your lender. Interest rate right about now is somewhere in that range. Term loan is 30. See these little red marks? These are required fields to fill out. Okay. They're again contract sales price, and now we're going down through looking for line items. So we've got a line item for earnest deposits. So let's just say they put 2,000 down. It's going to calculate some of these. Let's say professional service fee. Now this is basically your commission. Let's just say that the selling agent, the seller's only going to give 2.5%, and you're going to ask the buyer to cover another 0.5%. So you'll put in 0.5% of 650. Loan origination fee is probably 1%, is pretty standard. Some of these other fees that auto-populate are some averages that they come up with. Title policy, I always bump that up because I'm seeing those around 1,800, 1,900 for the title policy. Escrow fees, probably 750 is a good number to go with. Recording fee, 50 is about right. So here's additional settlement charges. So let's just say that the home warranty is not being paid for by the seller. So we'll put 600 in there. HOA transfer fee, say 400 if, the seller is not going to be paying for that. And then I always do a little miscellaneous fee. This is my, hey, things can pop up. You can call this like a remote signing fee. So if the buyer, say, is going to need to sign remote, there's generally a fee for that in addition to the title company fees. But this is going to run your monthly P&I. So it's going to show what your monthly obligation to your homeowner is. Oh, yes, monthly HOA fees are going to be up top here. I missed that. William, if you see it while I'm scrolling through here, let me know. Now, I haven't used this calculator forever. Oh, here's a credit report. So if the lender charges to pull a credit report. Okay, so items required by lender be paid in advance. It's already got $118 interest in there. If they require PMI reserves, they've already got 888 in there. Where is HOA? Oh, here we go. Let's just say there it is. Say we have an $85 a month HOA fee. So we can save it and we can print it from here. So just take your time going through each of those lines. And it's going to print here in a second. I'm going to open it up in a PDF or not. Apparently I'm going to save it. I thought I could save it and open it, but okay, so here is the sample estimated net sheet that you can provide to your buyer. So estimated cash from buyer is going to be 32,246. So there's also places in here, if there's concessions that are being given to back that out. But this all down through here is just compensation notice as well as a disclaimer saying, hey, look, this is only an estimate. We can only do so much. So I'm going to open up Fidelity. And so this is effectively the settlement statement I use. Now, this is going to tie right into Fidelity's numbers. So their numbers I don't even mess with because it's pulling off the purchase price. It's going to pull off the purchase price and calculate any and all fees associated through them. And they have a free version of this. So everyone can, go there, or contact Fidelity and basically just download the app. But, Carissa should be able to provide that. So if I want to do a calculator, I'll just do a seller, or no, we're doing buyer. Sorry. We'll do a buyer calculator. It'll come up momentarily. The gerbils are working hard in the background here. Let's refresh and see if that'll do it. All right, so let's presume there again, this is an FHA loan. Purchase price. Okay, so what I like about this is it's showing you what your max FHA loan limit is. Okay, so this is very important whenever you're working with the buyer, make sure that their loan program lines up, but also with the seller. So that last offer I said for 650, they'd need to come in with over $125,000 down to qualify for FHA. Okay, so this is an automatic red flag to that last offer that we did on this closing cost estimator that they're not going to qualify for FHA. Okay. Which was a bonus because I didn't even think about that. So now max FHA. So let's just presume that we're actually going to go under contract on a different home at 550,000. You can add the address here. So that way you can recall, what the property address is. Now it's going to go in and pull in the property tax. Going to pre-fill that for you. You had the 3.5% down payment, interest rate. Let's just bump that up a little bit. So look at the pre-qual that the lender gives you, and that'll determine, what that's going to be. Now, here's your buyer broker fee. Now, this is where you're going to indicate who's paying for what. So let's just presume it's a split fee at 3%. And I've never done this before. So let's say that we ask for 2% seller concession. It's going to pause and it's like, hey, is the seller paying the buyer agent compensation and providing concession? Yes. Okay. So now we have miscellaneous. The only thing is there's not a lot of lines here. So sometimes you have to include the miscellaneous one lump sum. Let's just say the buyer needs to pay 600 for the home warranty. Hazard insurance, this number always adjusts this because that percentage for whatever reason is never on. And then if you have an HOA fee, I forget what the HOA fee down there is, that select the closing date. say the end of July, and then now we compute. Okay, so it just adjusted the taxes, and this is our taxes are not as high as some other locations. So understand they're taking a average. So we always have to adjust the taxes as well. Okay. So this is what it's going to look like. Monthly payment of 4140. They need to bring 38,511 to close. Okay. So now let's just say we presume that the seller or the seller's only going to give us 2.5%. We would want to come in here and swap this to 0.5%. So that number that's going to drop quite a bit now. Okay, so now they're coming in 33,011. Okay, so you can share or print. If you need to add any additional fees, go to detailed closing costs, and you can edit these and add whatever you'd like. Okay, so whether it's, let's say you're doing one for a seller, you're going to add in any type of repairs that they need to account for, or anything along those lines. So I like this. Fidelity is much better. I can fly through this one so much faster. And I know the fees that are in this detailed closing cost in line with the title company. See, the title policy here is 1336. They get an escrow fee of 859, a signing accommodation fee of 150, a flood cert, new loan fee, endorsement fee, and closing protection letter. So that, when you start adding up these other fees, so they got what, 350, 450, 475. So about another 500, that puts us up, add 500 to that title policy fee. That's 1836. That's about where I was at when I made the ballpark on this other closing cost estimate. So it's effectively how you run through closing cost estimations for a buyer, and then for the seller, there again, just come to the seller button, and then you'll put in all the same information. So hopefully that will give everyone a little bit of clarification on how to move forward with settlement statements. Every single time you work with a buyer and or seller, whenever you're doing a contract, this is one of those things that you need to include to the buyer or seller. And there again, always make sure that you stipulate that it's an estimate. The lender's numbers are going to change. The title company numbers can change, right? The prorations may or may not change, but make sure that you send an estimate to them so everyone knows what to expect at the closing table. But there again, like I said, make sure you clarify this is simply an estimate. The lender's going to be able to get tighter on that, and title company is going to be down to the penny. So, all right. Hopefully that was helpful.